Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Day 3 of Steelers training camp practice report here on Steelers Talk. Just give you guys a little warning. We are right outside PNC Park, our hotel is, and they are playing live music outside of the stadium right now. So if you hear any of that, that's where that is coming from. But we got a lot to talk about today here, guys. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm going to be giving you guys practice updates every single day, including tomorrow as well. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button to know everything that's going on in Latrobe at Steelers training camp, how Aaron Rodgers is doing, how the defense is doing, everything that goes on. We're going to be talking about it on this channel every single day for free. So click that subscribe button if you want that premium training camp coverage. All right, so some opening business here that we need to attend to. Crazy attendance today, guys. Like, out of all my years going to Steelers training camp practices in Latrobe, today I think was by far the most people at the practice. I mean, it was absolutely packed on the hills. If you've been to the field there at St. Vincent, you guys know that there's hills, and people sit on them, people sit on chairs, and of course they got the bleachers. Not a single blade of grass was available, man. Like, everybody was packed in at every single part of the viewing area there at St. Vincent, and it was really a sight to behold. It was unbelievable, the line that you encounter when you start driving up to St. Vincent at 12 at noon. When the gates open, I mean, it just flooded in. I mean, it just, what a response, and a ton of excitement surrounding this football team this year. So big shout out to Steelers Nation for showing out today. It was also extremely hot, so there was a lot of stressors out there. Somebody that was there to watch, me and Cassie, people all around us, people standing up in front of you while you're watching practice, and then you have to deal with the heat, which was here for all 3 days of practice thus far. It can be a little bit stressful, but hey, we got through it, and Steelers Nation definitely showed out, man. They brought the juice, they brought the energy. There's so much passion in this fan base, which is why Steelers fans are the best fans in the world, period. All right. So some other things here before we get into the practice report. Jonnu Smith did work today in individual and team periods after sitting out the first 2 days in those periods. So we'll talk a little bit about what he did later in the show. But even though he was on the field today, not a whole lot of production to talk about from him. He's still getting used to Aaron Rodgers. He's still getting used to the offense. So nothing really of note on the field from him today, other than he was on the field during those periods, and he is a full go now. Also, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and Darius Slay, 3 starting defensive players, had veteran rest days today. Cordero Patterson and Isaac Seumalo are still out. Brandon Echols, the veteran cornerback that they brought in free agency this year, replaced Slay with the ones when they had their 3 cornerback sets, and he actually held up pretty nicely. So good on Brandon for coming in, and it seems like, at least at this point in the preseason, Brandon Echols is that next man up in the cornerback room, not Corey Trice Jr. at this point in time. Then we can talk about 7 shots, which kicks off practice. The Steelers kind of went over to the turf field because it rained this morning. They did their individual work on the turf field while everyone in the stands and on the hill waited. And then they came over. Mike Tomlin said a few words, and then they got into 7 shots, which is the mano-a-mano. Offense is at the goal line. They have to get in, or it's a failure. Best to 4 or first to 4, best of 7. The first play was a botched snap by Zach Frazier. That was the second time the first play in 7 shots was a botched snap from Frazier. So that's not great. But then after that, 2 straight touchdown passes from Aaron Rodgers. First one to DK Metcalf on a slant route, and then the next one, protection, actually held up really nicely on the offensive line while Rodgers was going through his progressions, and he hit a Darnell Washington for the touchdown there that second time. After that, Mason Rudolph came in for 2 plays. He was sacked by Patrick Queen. It was more of a coverage sack, but still a sack nonetheless. And then the next play, Rudolph threw Connor Hayward out of bounds. Hayward did come down with the football, but Rudolph threw it just a little bit too far, and Hayward couldn't get his feet down. Then Will Howard, the rookie, came in, and he threw a nice touchdown pass to another rookie, and a UDFA out of, I believe it's South Dakota, J.J. Galbraith, who's had a fantastic camp to this point. I'll talk about him a little bit later in the show. And then Rodgers came on for the final play, that 7th play of 7 shots to try and win it, but Alex Highsmith batted his pass down, and the defense won 4-3. So right now in camp, offense is 1-1. They won yesterday. Defense 1-1 today. But both of them have been 4-3. So Steelers offense has definitely been competitive at the goal line against arguably the best defense in football, at least in my opinion. And then you get into the other team periods, and the defense dominated the rest of the day, guys, especially on the first team unit. That's the second time in 3 practices where the offense just in general wasn't really moving the football all that much, especially with the first team unit. There was multiple TFLs when they were working the run game today. Some guys that stood out to me that got some TFLs was Derek Harmon and Dean Lowry, both beating Zach Frazier up the middle for quick TFLs there against the run. Also, there was 2 interceptions from the defense today. Dante Kent, the rookie out of Central Michigan, the 7th rounder, had a nice interception, jumping a curl route. Skylar Thompson threw that pass, so it was good to see Kent get that INT. He has had a really good start to camp to this point. And then Jalen Ramsey had an incredible leaping touchdown. Rodgers was working in, I think it was 13 personnel package, and it's play action. He's rolling out to his left. Rodgers throws off platform to Jonnu Smith, and Jalen Ramsey is covering him every step of the way. He leaps up in the air and catches it mid-air. It was probably the coolest play that happened in Latrobe today. Really impressive stuff from Jalen Ramsey. Let me tell you guys, this guy still got it. He lined up more on the outside today with Darius Slay off the field, and they would put Brandon Echols in the slot a little bit. But Jalen Ramsey still has the speed to play on the outside and the coverage ability to play on the outside as well. So I'm really excited about Ramsey and about what he brings to this defense, because it really is a lot. And then also, I would say the first team offense had a hard time completing passes in the passing game today, a lot because of the coverage. There was a lot of true PBUs, pass breakups from the defense today. Deshaun Elliott had one, Corey Trice had one. Juan Thornhill had a nice one today on Calvin Austin III. Like, we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and maybe some of the accuracy stuff that is showing up with him at these practices, but there is plenty of reps as well where these DBs are just smothering these receivers, and even with a good throw from Rodgers, it's falling to the grass and falling incomplete. So this defense absolutely looks the part of a top 3, top 5, maybe the best defense in the National Football League. And the fact that they were able to dominate the way they did today without their best player, TJ Watt, without maybe their second best player in Cam Hayward, and then without one of their starting corners, Darius Slay, I think it points to the depth of this group, and I think it points to this defense being able to play at a high level, even if they do have a couple of really impactful players injured. So that is really good news on the defensive side of the ball. But now let's talk quarterbacks here, and let's start with Aaron Rodgers, who bounced back yesterday. But remember, it was a shortened practice. They only had 2 team periods, not including 7 shots. So it was they've only really had 2.5 practices at this point in terms of team reps. And even though Rodgers did look better yesterday, he still wasn't throwing the ball down the field all that much. And to this point, guys, through the first 3 days of practice, he only has 2 completions of 10 or more air yards. And he only had 1 today, and that was in the 7-on-7 drill where he threw a nice intermediate route to Scotty Miller. That was a nice pass. But again, it's not 11 on 11. And in those 11 on 11 drills, he's only had 1 pass completed beyond 10 air yards, and that was that corner route to Calvin Austin III in yesterday's practice. So, Rodgers definitely needs to get better, with his consistency and his efficiency targeting his guys down the field, because first of all, he hasn't really attempted all that many, but I would say a majority of his intermediate and deep throws, at least to this point in camp, have fallen incomplete. Like, for example, today he threw a deep shot to DK Metcalf down the sideline, and even though Joey Porter Jr. had good coverage, Rodgers clearly threw the ball way too far into the sideline for DK to have a chance to come down with the football. That's something that we refer to as a never in history ball, and Rodgers threw one of those today, and then he just has little inconsistencies as well. You could tell that there was one out route to Roman Wilson where he threw it way past Roman on the sideline. That was a little bit of an accuracy issue. He's underthrown a couple times. He way overshot DK Metcalf on a dig route today. I just think Rodgers has had a little bit of accuracy inconsistency to start this camp. Now, obviously, he's just kind of of starting, and I do expect that to get better as camp goes on. But I will say Rodgers' accuracy took a dip last year with the New York Jets, and I'm hoping that's not taking another dip here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's also pretty consistent miscommunications between Rodgers and his receivers where, you can tell that Rodgers is throwing it to a spot and the receiver isn't going there. So that kind of comes with chemistry and comes with time and comes with reps. So that's going to be important as this training camp goes on to get that chemistry going and get on the same page. And I want to make sure I'm being 100% clear here, guys. I'm being honest with you guys about what I'm seeing from Aaron Rodgers, and to this point it hasn't been stellar, but that doesn't mean that I'm panicking. All right, like, this is still early. This is the point in the training camp where the defense is supposed to have the advantage. I would have liked to see Rodgers, throw with maybe a little bit more consistency with his accuracy. I would say Mason Rudolph has been the most consistently accurate quarterback in camp to this point, not Rodgers. And obviously you want to be talking about your starting quarterback as the most consistent, most accurate, all these different things, all these adjectives to describe your quarterback. You obviously want Rodgers to be that guy. So the fact that he hasn't been that guy to this point is a little bit concerning, but obviously it's early in camp. And it's no time to panic, at least not yet. Moving on to the backup quarterbacks, I thought Mason Rudolph continued to look pretty solid as QB2. He did have some, poor reps. His 2 misses in 7 shots. He got sacked, and then he had that slight overthrow into the end zone to Connor Hayward. So that led to 2 losses for the offense. And if he just gets one of those back, the offense wins 7 shots today. So those are obviously huge. But then he also he underthrew a deep ball to Rowan Wilson today in technically double coverage. It was Chuck Clark, and I think it was Brandon Echols on him as well. And he slightly underthrew it, and Roman almost came down with it before he dropped it at the very end. But those were kind of the 2 misses. But other than that, he had multiple downfield throws with good accuracy, and got one to he got one to I think it was Robert Woods. He had another one to Lamonius Craig. He had some good shots down the field today. So I wouldn't say Mason has been stellar, but he looks like a good backup quarterback, which is kind of what he is at this point in his NFL career. And when it comes to Will Howard, I did see some reports that the crowd was roaring when he came into the huddle for the first time. That wasn't true. There was a pretty big reaction to when he hit Lamonius Craig on a nice out route, which was a good throw. He threw it with good anticipation and good touch, and that got a nice reaction from the crowd. But all these reports saying that Will Howard, they were going crazy for him when he stepped into the huddle. I didn't get the sense from the crowd, at least not where I was sitting. And when it comes to Howard, I think to the first 3 days, the impression I've gotten from him is that he's operating the offense cleanly. He's putting the ball where it needs to go. He's not taking any crazy risks, and he's not like crazy inaccurate or anything like that. But it's also nothing like crazy high either. It's not like he's ripping seam balls or ripping these go balls down the sideline with perfect accuracy and touch or anything like that. Like, he's just, he's been solid and he's been doing his job and he doesn't look flustered. And, I think that's a good place for him to be right now. Is he in a place where you're expecting him to replace Aaron Rodgers or something like that? No, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from Will Howard, and I think he's setting a good foundation for himself at this point in his NFL career. Another thing I want to talk about here is the wide receivers. And DK Metcalf, I'm not worried about. He's going to be fine. But Calvin Austin III and Rowan Wilson have gotten off to pretty slow starts as first-team wide receivers to this point in camp. Calvin did catch Aaron Rodgers' only downfield completion of camp so far with that corner route on Friday. But he also dropped 2 catchable passes from Rodgers today. One of them was Rodgers maybe slightly overthrew him. He had to jump up a little bit, but it went right through his hands with tight coverage. And then another one where Rodgers threw a crosser to him, and Juan Thornhill came in and made a play on the football, but Calvin didn't bring it in, right? So, not too many downfield receptions for Calvin, not honestly too many, short completions from Calvin either. So I'm hoping to see more from him. I still think he's a good route runner, and I do believe in his skill set, but to this point, not too much to report on there. Then Roman Wilson. I want to say this, guys. I am so rooting for Roman Wilson because he is out there, one of the first 2 people out there to practice every single day. He goes on the jugs machine early. He stayed after practice with Aaron Rodgers today, throw some additional routes today, and then he stayed even later to do even more stuff on the jugs machine. So this guy just loves it. He can't get enough of it, and those are the types of players you want to succeed. And but unfortunately, he just hasn't had too many completions to start camp. He's had a couple, and most of them have been checked down, kind of underneath type routes. He hasn't done much after the catch, and he had his one opportunity to make a catch down the field today, and he couldn't convert on that slightly underthrown deep ball from Mason Rudolph. It would have been a hell of a catch if he came down with it. Really tough play, but he didn't come down with it, and you want your players to be able to do that. So I want to see Calvin and Roman continue to get better and continue to hopefully get more targets from Rodgers, hopefully get more completions. And obviously when chemistry and stuff like that begins to build throughout camp and throughout the preseason with QB1 here, hopefully those guys continue to light it up, and hopefully they do better than they have done, frankly, the first 3 practices. But if you were worried about Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson being your number 2 and number 3 receivers, at least the first couple days of camp, you would kind of feel good about your thoughts there and your opinion on that, because they have not caught too many passes, and the stuff they have caught hasn't been super splashy, let's call it. So hopefully those guys can turn it around a little bit. Also, I will just point out the defense has been really good, so maybe part of it as well is that the defense has been covering them exceptionally well, and they just haven't had opportunities to get the football. But then another position that does have a couple of concerns is the offensive line. Now, I won't take too much into this because obviously there's no pads, and you can't really know for sure how an offensive or frankly a defensive lineman is doing for sure until the pads come on and things get physical in these 11-on-11 type scenarios. But to this point, I would say Zach Frazier has been a disappointment. I know we don't want to hear that, but I think it's the truth to this point. He has had a bad snap in all 3, at least one bad snap in all 3 of the first practices. He's also allowed some very easy access in the run game, allowing some guys like Derek Harmon and even Dean Lowry today to pretty easily get by him for a TFL in the run game today. Maybe he's just a guy where, if the pads aren't on and he's not allowed to be full go and full physical, then maybe he's just not as good. But, he's going to be someone I'm going to be watching extremely closely when the pads come on, because to this point, Frazier, I think, has underwhelmed given how well he played last year in his rookie season. And then the one that's really been getting talked about a lot is Broderick Jones, who has had some really bad reps during camp to this point. He has allowed some pressure. And he just needs to play better. And, I think that he understands that. And I'm hoping that when the pads go on, we see a different Broderick Jones than what we've seen in the first few days of camp and, frankly, for the first 2 years of his NFL career. So the Steelers need those 2 guys, Frazier and Broderick, 2 high draft picks to be good if they want to accomplish their goals this year. So I'm really rooting for those guys, but those are 2 guys that have caught my eye in maybe not the most positive way. But now, shifting our focus here to finish up today's video on some positive standouts, some young players, and maybe some new additions that you guys should be keeping your eye on, because they have been making some splash plays out there. Starting with Jack Sawyer, the rookie edge out of Ohio State. He's winning out there, man. And now obviously they're going up against second teamer and third teamer type guys, but Jack Sawyer, for somebody that, in my opinion, has limited physical traits in terms of somebody to win as a pass rusher in the NFL. He's been winning there, and he's been winning with technique, and he's been doing a great job as a run defender. So I think Sawyer's going to be able to step in as that 4th edge rusher for this team right away, and fill that quote-unquote Preston Smith role as kind of a rotational rundown type of edge rusher. So to have that kind of players is going to be nice for this defense. Also, Dante Kent has had a really good 3 days. He was a 7th-round pick out of Central Michigan. Really loved his physical profile, loved his tape as well. He's been working with the 2nd and 3rd team defense, and he's been playing pretty darn well, man. Like I said, he got an interception today. He's just been very impressive through the first 3 days. Then Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell probably had the best run of the day. Like I said, the run game didn't do much, but Kenneth Gainwell had the best run of the day. They've also been using him quite a bit as a receiver, and he's been quite successful with that. So expect to see more Kenneth Gainwell than maybe you were expecting to see heading into the year. Also, UDFA, J.J. Galbraith, tight end out of South Dakota, has made at least like 3 or 4 catches in every single practice to this point. He is all over the place on the 3rd team offense, and He's become a favorite target of Will Howard. So keep your eye on Galbraith during the preseason here to maybe sneak in and make the roster if he really plays out of his mind in the preseason, or at least to get a practice squad invite at the end of camp, because he's been playing pretty darn well. And then Lamonius Craig, the wide receiver, number 21, kind of a bigger guy. He's had a couple nice catches over these last few days. He's a guy to keep your eye on for sure. I don't think he's going to make the final roster, but maybe a practice squad guy. Caught one today, both from, I believe, Mason, and then also he caught one from Will Howard as well. So keep your eye on those guys. But my final note of the day, guys, I know this is getting past 20 minutes, so much to talk about, but Aaron Rodgers was clearly not satisfied with the product on the field today. He did look a little frustrated once he was done for the day. And then he made sure, the wide receivers and tight ends stayed out with him to work on some things after practice. So, seeing that Rodgers understands that, the product that he's been putting out on the field hasn't been good enough, and he wants to get better, and he's putting in the work with his guys, is something that you want to see. And then I'll just say this, guys, tomorrow feels like a big day for this offense, because if you go into your first rest day where 3 out of the 4 days you were getting your butt kicked by the defense, and the only day that you looked pretty good was the day where it was a half day, essentially, because of rain. You don't want to go into the off day with that taste in your mouth. You want to go into that off day feeling good, feeling like that you finish that first pod of practices, that first round of practices off on a good foot, and you can head into Tuesday's practice with a positive mindset and with some confidence. So I feel like tomorrow's going to be a big day for Rodgers to get on the same page with his receivers, get on the same page with DK, Roman, Calvin, Muth, all these guys. And hopefully this offense in general can bounce back so that they can go into this off day on Monday with some confidence. All right, that'll be it for me today, guys. I know today was a long practice report because there was a lot to talk about. But again, we will have another practice report for you guys tomorrow before Cassie and I fly back home. But I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Thank you to everybody that came up to me and said hi during this week at Latrobe. You guys are the absolute best. You guys know who you are. You guys are what makes this channel fantastic, and I couldn't be doing this every single day for my job if it weren't for you guys. So I just want to express my gratitude for all the love and support you guys have shown to the channel, whether in person or whether just here on YouTube. I really do appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and until then, here we go, Steelers.